Boker Tov, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. Good to be with you on this beautiful morning. I need a deep breath in, and a deep breath out. Just a few moments to settle ourselves into this space, into this holy place that we're gathered this morning. To center ourselves in Shabbat, to root ourselves in our tradition, to be in this place where we say to God, Ma Tovu, how great, Ma Tovu Ohalecha, how great are your tents. I enter your house with joy. May this be a time that you hear my prayer, that I bring myself, my prayer to you, Holy One. Join with me on page 71. Page 73.
Torah
We join together in the blessing for the study of Torah, Birkat Torah, on the top of page 74.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah la'asok b'divrei Torah Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah la'asok b'divrei Torah
Elu dvarim she'en lahem shi'or, she'adam ochel pirotehem ba'olam hazeh, v'akeren kayemet lo le'olam haba ve'elu hein. These are the mitzvot which have no limit. One eats of their fruit at this time, yet their full effect is without measure. Kibud av va'em, to honor father and mother. Ugmilut chasadim, to perform acts of love and kindness. V'hashkamat Beit HaMidrash, Shacharit ve'Arvit, to attend the house to study daily. V'hachnasat orchim, to welcome the stranger. Uvikur cholim, to visit the sick. V'hachnasat chatan v'chala, to bring marriage partners to the chuppah. Ulvayat hamet, to accompany the dead to burial. V'iyun tefillah, to pray with sincerity. V'hava'at shalom ben adam l'chavero, to make peace when there is strife. The Talmud Torah keneged kulam, and the study of Torah is equal to them all because it leads to them all. Birchot shebachol yom, our daily blessings. Those blessings that sometimes slip by if we don't really give them attention, but those that give us the opportunity to wake up, to stretch our arms, our bodies, to breathe in, to take steps forward in our life. The bottom of page 79.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lesech v'bina l'avchim ben yom u'ben layla. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani b'tzomo. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani b'chorim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam mabish armi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokeiv kefuvim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam roka haaretz alamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa li kol tzorki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechin mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael b'gvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oter Yisrael b'tifara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten li ahev koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam המעביר שינה מעיניי ונומה מעפעפיי.
Sukkah de Zimra, the Psalms of Praise, page 83, Ma Gadlu. The last two lines of the second paragraph, the second stanza.
Ma gadlu ma'asecha
Designs. Page 84.
Ashrei yoshvei beitecha, oh yehalelu chasel. Ashrei yoshvei beitecha, oh yehalelu chasel. Ashrei, Ashrei, Ashrei yoshvei beitecha. Ashrei, Ashrei yoshvei beitecha. Happy are those who dwell in your house; they will sing your praises forever. Happy are those who dwell in your house; they will sing your praises forever. Ashrei yoshvei beitecha, od yehalelu chasel. Ashrei yoshvei beitecha, od yehalelu chasel. Ashrei, Ashrei, Ashrei yoshvei beitecha. Ashrei, Ashrei, Ashrei yoshvei beitecha.
We join together at the bottom of page 90.
Nishmat kol chai tevarech et shimcha Adonai Eloheinu.
At the top of page 91, Linda, would you lead us in the English? song as the sea, our tongues with melody as the roaring waves, our lips with praise as the heaven's wide expanse. Though our eyes might shine as the sun and the moon, our arms extend like eagle's wings, our feet speed swiftly as deer, still we could not fully thank you, God of all ages, or bless your name enough for even one of your infinite kindnesses to our ancestors and to us. As it is written, all my lips shall say, Adonai, who is like you. And David sang, bless Adonai, O my soul, and let all that is within me bless God's holy name. We praise you, God of wonders, exalted through praise, who delights in song, the only one, the life of the universe.
Yitgadol v'yitkadosh shmei Rabbah. Be'amad divrach yirutei v'yamlik malchutei. B'chayekon u'b'yomecho. U'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. Agala b'agala. U'vizman karim. V'meru. Yeshmei Rabbah mevarach, le'am le'amaya, yitbarach, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitbar, v'yitromam, v'yitnasei, v'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalo, shmei kodeshah, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirhata, shmechata v'nechemata, ta'viram be'alma, v'yimeru, amen. Yai, lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, 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 lai. Yai, lai, 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 lai. Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, HaMevorach, le'olam va'ed. HaMevorach, HaMevorach, le'olam va'ed.
On the bottom of page 95, Shirley Evans, would you lead us in the English?
We praise you, eternal God, whose presence fills creation, creator of light and darkness, who makes peace and gives light to all. With compassion, you illumine the world and its inhabitants. Through your goodness, creation is continually renewed.
How you have varied your works, all of them were made with wisdom. The universe is filled with your creative power. The stars and planets themselves radiate praise for you.
Cause a new light to shine upon Zion, and may we be worthy to behold its splendor.
We praise you, eternal one, creator of light. V'ha'er enenu b'toratecha v'dabek libenu b'mitzvotecha. In the middle of page 98. Enlighten us with your Torah. Inspire us to embrace your mitzvot.
V'ha'er enenu b'toratecha v'dabek
praise you, Eternal One, who chooses our people Israel with love. We join together on page 101 as we rise in our bodies and our spirits for the words of Shema and Ve'ahavta. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'ayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavah hayom al levavecha v'shiratam levanecha v'dibartam v'shivtecha b'beitecha u'v'lechtecha b'derech u'shochbecha u'kumecha u'shartam le'ot al yedecha v'ayu l'totavot bein einecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'v'yisharecha למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני Elohechem emet. Nicole, would you lead us in Emet V'Yatziv, page 103?
Emet V'Yatziv, true and certain it is that you are God.
As we yearn for certainty in a constantly changing world, enable us to find its source in you.
Nahom B'Kayam, firm and enduring, is your name throughout all generations.
May our trust in you preserve us for generations to come.
Who is good of these, beloved and precious, are your teachers to our ancestors and to us.
By observing the traditions of our people, may we come to meet you as our ancestors did and bring your presence into our lives.
Torah le'agir, awesome and majestic, is the redemptive power that you have displayed to the people of Israel.
Our people witnessed your presence when you delivered us from slavery to freedom. In beholding your redeeming power, we discovered our own capacity for tikkun olam, mending of the world.
Moses went to his death, showed us the power of God. Those of the seas, walk apart, weeping.
Miriam lifted her timbrel and showed us the power of song. Waves of voices swelled together, and we gave thanks to you for the gift of freedom.
We look to El Elyon, after our ancestors. We raise the voices in song to the supreme God, the source of life.
Please join me on the top of page 106 for the words of Surya Israel.
Surya Israel, Uma Bezrat Israel, Uvdechinu Mecha Yehuda Israel. Go Aleinu, Adonai Tzvaot Shalom, Kedosh Israel, Baruch Atah Adonai, Gal Israel. Adonai Sivatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagid Tehillah-techa. Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu v'Imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, V'Gonei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imot, U'Mevi Geula Libnei Bneihem, L'ma'an Shemo b'Yahava, Melech Ozer Moshiach Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, V'Ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Elam Adonai, Mechayei Hakol Atah, Rav Moshiach, Mechalkel Chaim B'Chesed, Mechayei Hakol B'Rachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim V'Rofeh Cholim, Umatir Hasurim, Umkayim Emunato, Lishenei Hafar, Michamoch Abal Gevuno, Umido Melach, Melech Mimitum Chayei, Umatzviach Yeshua, V'Ne'eman Atah Yachayot Hakol, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechayei Hakol. We sanctify your name on earth, even as the heavenly beings proclaim your holiness. And in the words of the prophet Isaiah, we sing, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzvaot, Melech al haaretz kevodo. Source of our strength, sovereign God, how glorious is your name in all the earth. Baruch kevod Adonai Bimkomo. You alone are our God and our Creator. You are our ruler and our helper, and in your mercy you reveal yourself in the sight of all the living. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Yimloch Adonai leolam, Elohai Sion, Ledor vador, Hallelujah. To all generations will make known your greatness, and to all eternity proclaim your holiness. Your praise, O God, shall never depart from our lips. We praise you, Eternal One, the Holy God. Baruch Atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh.
Turn to page 125 for Seder Kriyat HaTorah, the order for the reading of Torah on Shabbat morning. And on page 125 at the bottom of the page, Shirley Herman, would you lead us in reading that? And I feasted on your words. And yes, I can remember how the thunder was my heart and the fire was my soul. We rise to take the Torah from the ark. Reading this morning from Parshat Shlach Lecha. I'll be reading from Numbers chapter 13, verses 25 and following. In the new commentary, that's on page 981. If you've got the older commentary, that's page 1109.
Ya'amod Rishon, Yaakov ben Shmuel v'Sara.
Baruch Adonai Hamorah.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamorah Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Elohim melech haolam, asher b'chacham mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torah. Baruch Atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen. Amen. Vayashuvu mitur haaretz miketz arba'im yom. Vayilchu vayavo'u el Moshe ve'el Aharon ve'el kol adat b'nei Yisrael el midbar paran kadesha. Vayashivu otam dibat et kol ha'eda vayerum et pri haaretz. Vayisapru lo vayomru banu el haaretz asher shalachtanu v'gam zavat chalav udvash hi v'zeh piryah. At the end of 40 days, they returned from touring or seeking out the land, and they came to Moses and to Aaron and to all of the community of Israel at the wilderness of Paran at Kadesha, and they gave to him their report and to the whole community, and they displayed or shared with them some of the fruit of the land. They said to him and to all of them, "We came to the land that you sent us to, and indeed it is full of milk and honey, and here is its fruit."
Baruch Atah Adonai Elohim melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'hayei olam natah b'toheinu. Baruch Atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
Amen. Ta'amod Shniya, Nitza bat Abraham v'Sara.
Baruch Adonai Hamorah.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamorah Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torah. Baruch Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen. Amen. Efes ki oz ha'am hayoshev ba'aretz v'ha'arim v'zarot gedolot me'od. V'gam yelidei ha'anak ra'inu sham. Amalek yoshev ba'aretz ha'negev. V'chachiti v'hayevusi v'ha'emori yoshev ba'har. V'ha'knani yoshev al hayam ve'al yad hayarden. Vayihas Kalev et ha'am el Moshe vayomer. Alo na'aleh v'yarashnu ota ki yachol nuchala. However, the people that dwell in the land are very, very large and numerous, and the Anakites we saw there, and the Amalekites are living on the land in the Negev, and the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites are living in the hill country, and the Canaanites by the sea and next to the Jordan. And Caleb hushed the people, and and Moses and said to them, "We will surely go up and we will inherit it, because we will be able to do so."
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah tanah, v'hayei olam natah b'toheinu. Baruch Atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
Ta'amod Shlishit, Leah bat Zev v'Eda.
Baruch Adonai Hamorah.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamorah Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam,
Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Manu Et Torato Baruch Ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. V'ha'anashim asher alu imo amru lo nuchal la'alot el ha'am ki chazak hu mimenu v'yitz'u dibat ha'aretz asher turu ota el b'nei Yisrael lemor ha'aretz asher avarnu va latur et ha'aretz ochelet yoshvei hahi v'chol ha'am asher ra'inu b'tocha anshe midot v'sham ra'inu et ha'nefilim b'nei anak min ha'nefilim v'anhi ve'enenu kachagim v'chein chayinu ve'enehem. But the others that had gone up with them said to the people, we will not be able to go into this land and to inherit it, because the people there are very, very numerous, and they spread an evil report amongst the people. They said, we went to the place that you sent us there to scout out, and the land is one that eats its inhabitants. And all of those inhabitants that we saw there, they were like giants to us. And we saw the Nephilim and the Anakites, and among the Nephilim, we appeared to them. We looked like grasshoppers, and thus we must have also appeared to them.
Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah temet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu Baruch Ata Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Ya'amod Hamadiyah, Chaim ben Avraham v'Sara.
Please rise as the Torah is lifted.
Vezod HaTorah asher sam Moshe livnei Yisrael avi Adonai beyad Moshe. Vezod HaTorah asher sam Moshe Vezod HaTorah asher sam Moshe Vezod HaTorah livnei b'nei Yisrael Vezod HaTorah avi Adonai b'yad Moshe Vezod HaTorah asher sam Moshe Vezod HaTorah asher sam Moshe Vezod HaTorah livnei b'nei Yisrael Vezod HaTorah avi Adonai b'yad Moshe Vezod HaTorah asher sam Moshe Vezod HaTorah.
Our Haftarah for this morning is taken from the book of Joshua. We'll be reading the end of it. It begins on page 999 in the newer commentary. We'll be reading from that, page 999, or in the older commentary, page 1263, Joshua chapter 2, verse 15 and following. Ta'amod Yehudit bat Eliyahu ve'Esther hamaftira.
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim ורצה בדבריהם הנאמרים באמת. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בתורה ובמשה עבדו ובישראל עמו ובנביאי האמת בצדק. ותורידם בחבל בעד החלון, כי ביתה בקיר החומה, ובחומה היא יושבת. ותאמר להם, ההרה לכו, פן יפגעו בכם הרודפים, ונחבאתם שמה 3 ימים, עד שוב הרודפים, ואחר תלכו לדרככם. ויאמרו אליה האנשים, נקיים אנחנו משבועתך, הזה אשר השבעתנו. הנה אנחנו באים בארץ, את תקוות חוט השני הזה תקשרי בחלון אשר הורדתנו בו, ואת אביך ואת אמך ואת אחיך ואת כל בית אביך תאספי אלייך הביתה. והיה כל אשר יצא מדלתי ביתך החוצה דמו בראשו, ואנחנו נקיים בכל אשר יהיה איתך בבית דמו בראשנו, אם יד תהיה בו. ואם תגידי את דברנו זה, והיינו נקיים משבועתך אשר השבעתנו, ותאמר כי דבריכם כן הוא, ותשלחו וילכו ותקשור את תקוות השני בחלום, וילכו ויבואו ההרה, וישבו שם 3 ימים עד שבו הרודפים, ויבקשו את הרודפים בכל הדרך ולא מצאו. וישובו 2 האנשים, וירדו מההר, ויעברו ויבואו אל יהושע בן נון, ויספרו לו את כל המציאות אותם. ויאמרו אל יהושע, כי נתן אדוני בידינו את כל הארץ, וגם נמוגו כל יושבי הארץ מפנינו. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, צור כל העולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות, האל הנאמן, האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק, על התורה ועל העבודה ועל המעים ועל יום השבת הזה שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו, לקדושה ומנוחה, לכבוד ותפארת על הכל. אדוני אלוהינו, אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך, יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
Thank you, Judith. We turn to the words of Misha Beirach, page 133. So we ask God's blessing upon those in need of healing of body and healing of spirit. This morning in our community, we are praying for Shirley Herman, Esther Wuchenmark, Rick Valentine, Simon Green, Marlene Friedman, Linda Levenhack, Jack Kudlatz, Francis Van Tyne, Suzanne Scher-Stimson, Bernie McLennan, Harriet Lachman, Helen Becker, Nicola Proetti, Eliyahu Ben Yitzhak Basara, Rebecca Bobil, Parker Kaiko, Philip Shepard, Carl Katz, Nicole Hansen, Gilanda Ruzi, Madeline Kitson, Kathy Kitson, Sharon Burr, Robin Burr, Dee Hickey, Lorraine DaCosta, Jack Richmond, Nettie Sendalavici, Alofsky, Adela Tsur, Ann Steinbach, Erwin Milgram, Evelyn Tyndall, Amanda Shank, Daniel Black, Jean Elizabeth Pitt, Fran Cook-Kaiser, Shmuel Ben Devora, and Pauline Portnoy. And I invite you to share other names of those for whom you're praying for this morning, or to hold those names in your heart. As we pray these words together, we ask for their comfort and for their strength.
May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishebeirach imotenu, mikor habracha yavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
The prayer for the state of Israel is on page 135. Surya Yisrael v'goalo, barech na et medinat Yisrael, hagshamat tikvatenu. Rock and Redeemer of Israel, place your blessing upon the state of Israel, the realization of our hope for a Jewish homeland. Send your light and your truth to all its inhabitants. Spread over them the shelter of your peace. Bestow insight upon its leaders, judges, and representatives, that they may pursue justice, freedom, and integrity. Visit blessing upon all your people Israel, wherever we dwell. Plant the love of Zion into our hearts, that our footsteps may race to walk upon its soil. And may the vision of the prophet Isaiah soon be fulfilled, for Torah shall come forth from Zion, and God's word from Jerusalem. And let us say, Amen.
Hallelujah, et Shem Adonai, ken yisgav shmo levato. Adonai eretz v'shayim, vayarek keren le'amo. Tehila lechol chasidav, livnei Yisrael am karovo. Hallelujah.
So Shlach Lecha begins with the story of the Meraglim, the scouts or the spies, depending on how you want to translate that, how we understand it, going to take a look at the land that Bnei Israel are going to go into and to bring back a report. And it ends with the mitzvah of tzitzit, of the fringes that we wear on the corners of our garments, on the end of the talit. And so this morning, we're going to look at, what is the connection of these two ideas? What is the connection of this idea of sending out these spies and bringing back the report, and the report that they bring back, which of course is a report that is conflicting. It's only the minority report that says, yes, we should go forward, we can indeed conquer this land, and we can live in it. So that last verse that I read this morning, which says, we look like grasshoppers to ourselves, and we must have looked that way to them as well. They're too numerous for us. They're too big. We don't have a chance. So there's a lot of commentary on that. What does that mean? What is it that we must have looked like that in their eyes? We must have looked in their eyes as grasshoppers. And Rashi usually gives us the plain sense of the text anyway, which is interesting here. Because what it looks like is that he's quoting a little bit of a midrashic passage. He says, we heard them say one to another, there are ants in the vineyards that look like human beings. So when he's giving us the plain sense of the text, his understanding from the Talmud, which looks like it's a little bit of midrashic, is no, it's pretty clear that when they looked at us, they must have looked at us like a bunch of ants in the garden, pretty much. That section of the Talmud goes on to say the spies were liars, that the determination we were like grasshoppers is possible to accept. But they also, in their eyes, how would they know who the Canaanites viewed them? So I'm wondering what your take is on that. How would they know? How would they really have any idea what the Canaanites looked like? And what was it about this experience of going into the land that caused the majority of the people to say, we can't go forward, those 10 out of 12. Arlene?
It's probably how they thought of themselves. They had perhaps no confidence. It's almost equivalent to someone who, without anybody saying anything, will say, they think I'm ugly, or they think I'm too heavy. If you have low self-worth, then you impose on someone who sees you how you feel about yourself. So that may be the concept there.
So really, it was not so much about what the Canaanites actually perceived them to be. It was more about the 10 who said, well, we can't do this, we're not worthy, so therefore we shouldn't go. Other thoughts? Horace?
I take a look at this, and the description that's given to us is a physical description as to the appearance. But it gives you a deeper meaning that there's more of a mental approach to this than there's a physical approach to this. Is that we're intimidated physically, but whatever mentally is, yeah, it's really any type of battle is more mental than physical.
So the important thing was that it didn't matter physical size, but it's, whether they thought they could do it, whether they had the koach, not really literally the physical strength, but the internal strength.
Yeah, it is some sort of, as you mentioned, Horace mentioned, it's not a physical, it is something like an intelligence and something intellectual of that person that describe as we could see on their eyes. And that is why, to me, it is something more than physical, more than something touch. It is something emotion and knowledge.
So again, it's not in the physical that they didn't think they could do it. Maybe they just didn't have it within them internally. I mean, which might lead us to the question of why those 12, which the rabbis didn't address. But why those particular 12? Or is it usually this way when you're going to do something that's different, unusual, frightening? Is there usually only a minority of folks that will say this is a possibility, we could go forward? So the Rashbam on that same verse says, anything low considers itself like a grasshopper when it's compared to something much taller. He said, well, physically you would look like that. He says, we find proof in Isaiah chapter 40, verse 22, compared to the one who is enthroned above the vault of the earth, views its inhabitants as if they were a grasshopper. And he's comparing us, people, human beings, to the divine, right? That God, if God were to look down, assuming that that's where God's presence resides, in the heavens, and look down at the people, you would look like little tiny ants. If you've ever been at the top of a very tall building and look down at the people in the street and the cars, you look very tiny. So he right there is giving us sort of this very much a physical picture of what it might have looked like. And, he's basically saying, well, yeah, maybe the people were much bigger. That's just the way it looked. And Dat Sekenim says the same, the Nephilim, the descendants of the Anakites, the giants. Anyone who took a look at these people will be awed by them and feel totally inadequate, scared they would attack him. So both of those commentaries are telling us, stands to reason that they were afraid. Now, we come to a little bit more modern commentaries, and what they give us is a little bit more of that mental fortitude, that sense of it's not just about physical size, but if you are ready, you might be able to do this. So Rabbi Harvey Fields, in his Torah commentary, says, we can conquer promised lands when we have regard for our talents, we believe in our creative powers. The sin of the spies grows from their failure of self-love and self-respect. Only Joshua and Caleb, who refused to see themselves as grasshoppers, are worthy to enter the promised land. So what about those other 10? What did they not have? Or what did Joshua and Caleb have? Gail.
Faith in themselves.
They didn't have faith in themselves. They didn't have enough faith that they could accomplish this, that they could take on the task they were given. At least they took on the task they were given to go check it out, but then they got scared. Joel.
The Israelites in the wilderness were all born into slavery. And so they were, taught from birth that they're not worthy, they're less. And that's a hard mental habit to break.
So having been living their whole lives in slavery, not having really a sense that they had value, that they had worth, that they could overcome what they had experienced through most of their life, their reaction in seeing these very giant people, if in fact they were, or in looking at this really daunting task, was, we're not going in there. We can't manage this. And that's very much, I think, our own experiences of the world in many ways, depending on what life has thrown our way and how we can overcome that. And so perhaps it's Joshua and Caleb who somehow managed to find some sense of strength of self, that they were saying, we can do this. And in fact, maybe it has a lot to do with their faith, because Menachem Mendel of Kotsk says, God responded Why are you so concerned about how you look in the eyes of the Canaanites to the point that it distracts you from your sacred task? Which is, of course, a lot about saying, what do you care what other people think of you? Not an easy task for many of us. But the end of that phrase, it distracts you from your sacred task. Perhaps that's what Joshua and Caleb were focusing on. This is what we were called upon to do. This is what we were sent for. This was our mission. And we're not going to be distracted from that. We have enough faith to think we can go forward. Which brings us to the very end of this parsha, in which we read, "That shall be your fringe. Look at it and recall all the commandments of Adonai and observe them, so you do not follow your heart and eyes and your lustful urge." Sforno, our commentator, says, when you see them, you will remember all of the mitzvot. You'll be reminded that you are God's servants whose commandments you have accepted. And this reminder will be due to your looking at the fringes. And this in turn will lead you to cease to follow the inclination of your hearts and eyes to indulge diverse urges originating in your bodies. Without these fringes, as a constant reminder of your purpose on earth, you would be likely to fall prey to the urges inspired by the evil urge. We need a physical reminder all the time, not to do bad things. Joshua and Caleb probably didn't have tzitzit, actually. Maybe they did. But is that what we need? Sometimes. Arlene?
I think in life we all need items reminders. And the rabbis go out of their way to find ways to tie the way tzitzit are made to the number 613. Ideas need something tangible to hold on to. And I think as human beings, we need the notes, the symbols, the pictures, because the ideas can't just float in the air. They need to be attached to something. And the tzitzit seems to fit in with that concept when they're interpreted to ultimately total 613, the letters in the knot.
So having a concrete reminder is helpful to us, certainly. Having reminders that you even if you don't want to forget to pick up milk on your way home, you write it down on a note. Having those constant reminders in our lives. And also having that focus, that sense of this is what we're about, this is why we're here, it's what we're called to do within the mitzvot. Perhaps it's what allowed Joshua and Caleb to see something different in their experience of touring the land. But the connection as well, Rashi gives us a connection here because the same verb is used, taturu. The verb has the same meaning as in the very beginning of the section I read this morning. And they returned from searching, we tour the land. They returned from searching. So the translation is, he says, you shall not search after your own heart. Since the heart and the eyes are the spies of the body, the eye sees, the heart covets, and the body commits the sin. Well, possibly. You might also think that the heart and the eyes and the body can do good things. It depends on how you utilize what you've been given. But certainly, if you search, if you find that connection, if you remember what it is that your purpose is, why you're here, you might not see yourself as a grasshopper anymore. So another modern commentary from the Torah Women's Commentary, published by the Reform Movement, as long as we see ourselves merely as grasshoppers up against giants, we'll set ourselves up for failure. If we want to create anything new to enter the promised land, we have no choice but to leap into the unknown, to believe in ourselves, to trust in God's faith in us. The voice of optimism and hope is what separates Joshua and Caleb from the other scouts This is what, in spite of a long history filled with good reasons to see ourselves as grasshoppers and give up, has enabled the Jewish people to continue and thrive. Can you think of examples in Jewish history or in your own life or people that you know that we might have seen ourselves as grasshoppers and given up?
Well, there's Goliath, the David and Goliath story, where the people are not going to give up until the smallest person showed up as a knight.
Yeah, so here's little David, and in fact, that story might well have been taken from this same passage if we think about it, because here again, it's a giant that he's facing. Everyone else around him can't stand up to him, but David said we can do it, and he did.
You have to be, it said, you have to be optimistic. Because when you fight with the giant, it is some sort of failure, but you have to continue to your sin and do not give up. And be with the people and always, because when somebody is bigger than me, always maybe he's going to dominate me, I never give up. Just continue, be optimistic and positive and go to the promise. At the end, they say the promise land.
So that optimism, that hope, that sense of tikva is what will carry us through. Any other examples from history or from your life, people that you look up to? Arlene?
Think about the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, that group of people who said we are going to stand up and make a stand even though it can't be successful, or those who joined and became partisans, people who looked at situations where they may not, at least initially, be successful, had enough faith in themselves and in their cause that they kept on and they kept trying. And I guess, anything that Israel has done, every war they've entered into almost, they were told, at least initially, the underdog, but they knew they were fighting for their existence. And that takes looking at yourself not as a loser, but someone who fought. And I think that's what gives us strength to survive.
Yeah, all of those examples really speak to courage and faith and determination. And the idea that although the others might see us as grasshoppers, we're not going to see ourselves that way. So Rabbi Alan Cook, my friend, says, it seems that Sidra is about seeing what we choose to see and what we ignore. And it begins with the spies, 12 of them, they all saw something different. And at the end, it's what we see when we look at the fringes, what it reminds us of. So Caleb and Joshua saw the beauty of the land. The rest of the spies saw obstacles in the way. The Israelites, they saw what they saw based on the reports they heard secondhand, and they were afraid. In Tzitzit, they remind us to appreciate the mitzvot that we have, the opportunities to do in the world. And remind us as well that when we've been in Mitzrayim, in a narrow space, that God freed us, that God brought us out of slavery. And the choices we have is how we see, how we look in the world, what we see, whether or not we consider ourselves to be grasshoppers, and even if we do, what we feel that we are called to do, if we can understand our mission and focus on that and not be distracted from the sacred tasks that are set before us. So just a bit about this morning's Parsha. There's much more in there as well, but thank you for your thoughts this morning. We turn now to page 149. As we rise for the words of Aleinu, we are reminded, Aleinu, it is upon us, that it's up to us to partner with God in the work of Tikkun Olam, in making the world a better place.
Aleinu shameach Adon hakol, lateit gdula liotzer breshit, asher sam chelkenu yached et shemo, v'gor aleinu lamlich b'chuto, v'adam kovim, u'mishtalavim u'madim, livnei mer, alei olamim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, she'onotei shamayim ve'yosei haaretz, u'asher yikaro Hashemayim imah, u'shchiratu zo, v'govei meromim, u'eloheinu eino, eloheinu l'kesuloto, kagatu b'torato, v'yadatayu v'shivota el levanecha, ki Adonai hu Elohim, b'shamayim v'imah, ve'al haaretz
At this time, our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those of our friends and our neighbors, and all those people whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We recall the names of the following, for whom we are in Shloshim at this time, the first 30 days of mourning. Sylvia Kaiser, the mother of Jeff Kaiser and the mother-in-law of Jocelyn Weber, and Richard Kaiser, the brother of Jeff Kaiser and the brother-in-law of Jocelyn Weber. We recall the names of the following, whose yard site, the anniversary of whose death occurs this week. Marie Leeming, the mother of Darlene Freeman, Fanny Kugelmass, the mother of Michael, Bernard Tash, the father of Marlene and Seymour, the father-in-law of Tom Dennis and the grandfather of Andrew, Hirsch Wanowitz, the cousin of Lila Wiersba, Blanche Cohen, the mother of Beverly Rothschild, the grandmother of Lisa and Debbie, the great-grandmother of Ethan, Hayden, Emma, and Adina, Paula Korda, the aunt of Roz Weisberg, Kelly Wright, the grandmother of Rachel, Sigmund Steinmetz, the grandfather of Steve Steinmetz, Lydia Schneider, the mother of Sylvia Loeffler, the grandmother of Romina and Julieta, Edward Isidore Tabbas, the father of Peter, Irving Bornstein, the father of Linda Blofield, Norman Zone, the brother-in-law of Harold and Susie and Arlene Botnick, and Harold Lustig, the cousin of Rita Grossman. If you are here to say Kaddish for someone whose name I have not read, you're invited to share their name aloud at this time, or to hold their name in your heart. We ask those who are mourning to please rise first. As we say to Min HaMakom Tinachamu, may you find comfort in God's sheltering presence. Now as a community, we all rise to support those who are mourning and to say Kaddish for those who have no one to say it for them. Page 159. Yitgadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach yiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, b'chayechon u'v'yamechon, u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agalav v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah v'varach le'alam al'almei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudusha b'richu, le'elam in kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, Damiran Be'alma V'imru Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chayim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru Amen. Osei Shalom B'mramav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'al Kol B'nei Adam, V'imru Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all those who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved among us, among all the people of Israel, and among all the nations and families of earth. We say together, Amen. Please be seated. It's my pleasure to call upon Arlene Botnick, representing our board, to bring Shabbat greetings and announcements.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Just a reminder that during the month of July, our Shabbat services will only take place Friday evenings at 8 p.m. and regular services both Saturday and Friday evening will begin again on August the 5th and 6th. Remember, all our activities, updates, and announcements are on Solel Facebook, our Twitter account, Instagram accounts, and our website. Also, please remember, dues invoices have been mailed out to you. If you haven't received a copy of your invoice, please call the office on Monday morning and we'll make sure a copy will get into you. And of course, we'd appreciate your paying attention to that notice as soon as you're able to. Tomorrow, there's going to be our annual Interfaith Council Appeal picnic at a mosque on Coopers Avenue in Mississauga between 1 and 3 p.m. If any of you are interested in joining us at that picnic, please speak to either the rabbi or me and we'll give you more information. As well, on June the 29th, Mayor Crombie is inviting all of us to the Pride social event. Again, on the Mississauga website, it'll be a wonderful way to celebrate. We are continuing with donations through the World Union of Progressive Judaism for the Ukraine needs, or through the UJA in Toronto. So I wish all of you a good summer. Hope to see most of you on some Friday nights during the month of July. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Arlene. And I invite you to join with me on page 164 as we conclude our service with the words of Kiddush and Motzi.
V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat le'dorot ha'merit olam. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat le'dorot ha'merit olam. B'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat le'dorot ha'merit olam. Ki sheshet yomim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et ha'aretz. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat le'dorot ha'merit olam. U'bayom ha'shlishi Shabbat v'yinapash, Shabbat v'yinapash, Shabbat v'yinapash. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat le'dorot ha'merit olam. Ken berach Adonai et yom ha'Shabbat v'yikadshehu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri ha'olam.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivav al netilat yadayim.
Ha'otzi lechem ha'aretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ha'otzi lechem ha'aretz b'tei avot. B'tei avot, Shabbat Shalom. Please join us in the lobby for Oneg Shabbat and enjoy a day of Shabbat rest and peace. Shabbat Shalom.